Hey everyone. So I have started the second episode many, many times. I don't even, this may not have to be the second one. I've completed another one, but for some reason I got stuck on that. The next one has to be truthfulness because of this quote, truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. So I was like, great, we got to start with our foundation. And I would like read about it and it just felt mechanical and like uninspired. And I kept getting stuck and restarting and I don't know, just reading just felt pretty directionless, which was weird because I was so excited to do this and then I kept getting stuck and I realized that I was losing my why. Our why is like a compass and it keeps us moving in the right direction. And how I was losing it was after every step, right? I would record something, kind of muscling through it, and then I would get to the editing step, and AI would have these suggestions, and they'd be like, this clip is going to go viral, and like, you should title it this way. I was just down this rabbit hole of what AI thinks I should be doing and the words I should be using. And I would literally look at it and be like, why would that go viral? Like, I'm not even saying anything important there. Maybe it has one really solid keyword. And so much so that it's like I put a couple shorts up and was shocked that people were looking at it. And because I wasn't really ready to completely like share this yet, but just trying to practice and get a little better and figure out how to post things and whatnot. And just found myself almost in an argument with AI because I'm like, well, that title doesn't properly depict what I'm trying to say. Not, I mean, obviously I wasn't sitting there arguing with my computer, but when it gives these suggestions of the clips and the titles, and then I would listen to the clip and it was weird because I didn't think it was that profound, but then part of me was like, well, AI thinks it's profound, so this is probably what I should use. And then the title that it would have was just real exaggerated, I felt. And it's like, oh, yeah, that'll hook someone to watch. However, they'll probably be a little bit underwhelmed when they watch it because it's a little bit exaggerated, which was interesting because part of truthfulness is saying things like they are, being full of truth. It's not exaggerating. I don't think AI is our most truthful source yet. So I was sort of in this struggle. And as I would start to edit and then I would sort of get led down this path of, oh, okay, so, likes are important and subscribe is important and um, the clips going viral. And it started to feel uninspired because that wasn't my why. That's not why I'm doing this. And it's so easy to get derailed because even the way we're prompted with certain things can sort of draw our attention and lead us away from the literal reason that we're actually genuinely trying to do something. So it is really tough. And it reminds me about when I started doing stand up. And my why was because I wanted to bring joy to people. I wanted to make people happy and make people laugh and I just genuinely liked bringing joy to others. And honestly, I mean, there was just lots of nights where it wasn't that joyful, even if you got a laugh. Like it was a lot of nights in bars where people are drunk or they're already happy for like totally different different reasons or not paying attention. Like the whole thing was like, yeah, like you got like 5 seconds to catch someone's attention. Otherwise, they might just turn back to their drink or the people around them. I mean, sometimes you're in clubs, but sometimes you're like in places that they didn't even know there was going to be stand-up comedy. Like you're really pushing and stretching yourself. And often it's just other comics trying to get up and get stage time and work their material. And a lot of the material was just like very uninspiring. It was just like over sexualized. And I don't know. I get everyone's out there like trying to do their thing, but I just found it really depressing. And I was like, weird. I'm trying to spread joy and I'm not even finding joy. So like when I would get up and get my 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and then it's 2 in the morning because you waited 3 hours to get your time as you weren't one of the front people, it was just like, wow, this is really exhausting. Like, what am I doing? And I get that there's a grind to it. And, some things you just got to stick with. I did have the opportunity to meet Amy Schumer. That's a long story. But anyway, second time when I saw her, she said like, how's the comedy thing going? And I was like, it's good. Like, it's going well. Like, everything was fine. It just was like, eh. And she said, yeah, basically you don't even have to be that good. You just have to not quit. And she's right. I think like through diligence, right? Some success will come because humor is really relative and there's something out there for everyone. But she was basically like, just don't quit. So what did I do? I quit. But what led me to that was I just started feeling like suddenly, again, my why stopped being about bringing people joy. And it was about maybe being famous. Like I was like, am I just seeking fame? Which to me is fine if that's sort of like an effect of the work that you're putting into, but it almost felt like that had started to be at the center. And it was like, yeah, you just got to do whatever it takes and, perform this many times a week and go to these places. And it doesn't even matter what you're talking about. And I was like, but it does matter. And I wanted it to matter. And I get there, to me, my favorite comics obviously have succeeded at that. They're talking about meaningful things and they're very funny and they're spreading joy. But for me, where I was at, and in all honesty, I had not reached the point that I was being super vulnerable. I was being very protective, and it was like my jokes were not me. So that way, if people didn't laugh, it was like, well, I'm still funny, but my jokes aren't, right? I was very protective over myself. And I think it's when people take that authentic leap and really share themselves, that's what we love. That's what we lean into, right? Like, probably if you think of anyone you've listened to, whether it's a podcast or whether it's a comedian, there's things that are relatable, but there's also just things that you appreciate that they're sharing. And it's courageous. It really is. So, anyway, I sort of got stuck on wait, this is very egocentric. My why is me. Like, I'm at the center of everything and everything's revolving around me. My job, my faith, my hobbies. And it just felt wrong. I was like, surely I'm not the largest thing, in the center of this universe here. And for me, it took a reorientation. It was like, wait a second. For me as a Baha'i, it was a very easy reorientation that God is at the center of everything and we're all revolving around this center. And to me, whether probably more of a relatable concept is a higher power. In the Baha'i faith, God is described as an unknowable essence. So really it could be energy. It's like, to me, it's like anything good. It's like the light in the world, like the gravity that's sort of like holding things together. However you want to describe it, a higher power. There's definitely something bigger than me out there. And I wanted that at the center. And for me, being a Baha'i, Abdul Baha says it means to love all of humanity and strive to serve it. And so when that was my why, it brought about unlimited opportunities to actually bring joy and humor and make people laugh. Because when I was just striving to love people and striving to be of service, I actually ended up like stepping aside from comedy and moving to China. It took me in a very different direction, but the skills that I had developed through stand-up comedy were certainly translatable, and I could do public speaking, and just really it was like my humor wasn't confined to stage. I realized I had a knack for like bringing joy in moments, especially like when you're just being of service and working alongside other people, and whether it is in work, right? Because work is also a form of worship and it's putting something good into the world. And it was almost just like when the why was clear, when my path was clear, when my direction was clear, to love all of humanity and to strive to be of service, then my little hopes and dreams started manifesting opportunities for that. And so that's one thing I realized, that in me doing this, when my why is connected to something infinite, something greater than myself, there's unlimited possibilities, unlimited potential. When my why is something finite, like honestly, something maybe more directed towards just personal gain, again, I think these things will come along with when your why is greater than yourself or outside of yourself. But when it's sort of more narrow, like when I think of stand up, when it was just like, oh, I want to be famous, right? Is that like a point that you reach and then you're done? I feel like if that why is connected to something finite, then it's harder to find the opportunities, right? I was like, I have to be in bars, I have to be in clubs. Like, that's in order to get there, that's the path I have to take. But when my why was to bring joy and connect with other people, it opens a lot more doors. And so same thing in my why here. It was suddenly like AI was steering me in this direction of viral videos, likes, this one is 90%, 99% guaranteed to make it. And I would listen and just feel really uninspired. And I was like, that's not what I want to share. That's not the most important part of this message. And again, it was just leading me in this path that just I started to feel disassociated with. And it's really interesting because when I feel like I'm on the right path, I feel really warm and excited and enthusiastic and inspired. And when I don't, it's like my insides just get really cold and start to shut down. And I kid you not, multiple times trying to record this truthfulness episode, I was just like, why am I freezing right now? Like, what's going on? I'm going to go turn up the heat, put on a sweater. And it was just my body telling me, no, let's try again. This isn't it. This isn't it. And it was because I was trying to create something that wasn't authentic. It wasn't truthful, right? Honestly, it wasn't actually true to what I wanted to do. In fact, I found myself looking up other people's podcasts of like, how did they do it? How did they introduce themselves? And again, just trying to be like someone else that I knew was having success. And so I thought, well, people like them, then that's what I should do. But that someone else is already doing that, right? Like the whole point is that we're trying new things and we're developing these skills and these abilities to be authentically us because there's only one of us in the world and we're the only one that can do it. And so I think it's sort of a trap that we can get into with all this information and all these people have gone before us that it's really hard not to compare ourselves. I had these notes. I literally typed out everything one night that because it was just like flowing out of me in a way that sometimes when I turn the camera, it's not. So I'm already way off of that. But that's the huge part of it. I just needed to remind myself of my why. Like the reason I'm doing this is because I want to get better at giving consistent effort towards growth. And I'm doing it for myself. That was a funny thing. Suddenly I got into this people pleaser mode of like, well, I don't know if people are going to like it. Maybe I'll do this. Will they like this? Like I was like a dance monkey. Like I'm just trying to entertain people. And I was like, no, stop. I'm doing this because it's something I genuinely think is important and I think it's beneficial. And I want to share that with others. And then people that are excited about that or find it interesting, that's who's going to be the likes and the subscribes or whatever. But I'm not trying to I'm not trying to get everyone. And it's literally in the name of my show. It's called Most Improved. I found myself chasing after MVP and just, it has to be perfect and it has to be presented well and it has to be polished. And it's like, no, this is about improving a little bit each day, a little bit each time. And so allowing myself the freedom to not be perfect and to share just kind of from my heart and not give like 10 little bullet points to success because I don't have that. Let's see, what else I have in here? Yeah, so essentially I got sort of stuck comparing myself to others. And we've all heard comparison is the thief of joy. And it's really hard not to compare our beginning to someone else's middle. I remember the best parenting advice I ever received was before my first child was born, so when I was pregnant with her, and one of my friends who was a mother, she said, "Don't compare yourself to a mother with more children than you or to a mother who's at a different milestone because they've had to go through where you are to get there. And it's not fair to yourself because it's not realistic essentially. So when you see a mom of 3 going, oh my gosh, like how is it that she's juggling the groceries and she's got a kid in the car seat and right, like she can look as chaotic as she probably looks, she still may look more put together than how you're feeling with your first child when they're newborn and you're like, I'm crying and I'm not sleeping and it feels like it'll never end. I remember even with my second, it's different than the first. And it's it's new every time because now you do have one child and now you have your second child and you're like, well, finally figured out how to do it with one and now there's another one. And I remember just crying to my husband and I said, I don't know if this is a sprint or a marathon. Like, I don't know where the finish line is. So I don't know if I'm close to the finish line, so I should start sprinting, or if I still got 26.2 miles to go and I need to just like walk it out a little bit. And I think ultimately what I learned is, yeah, take a breath, like start walking. Even if it is a sprint, you can just walk all the way to the finish line. Like, who cares? Because it's not a race, right? So just remembering that when we see someone else's life, if you're comparing it to your own, you're comparing a snapshot of the outside of someone else's life to the intimate, messy inside of your own, right? It would be like like if you're looking at a watermelon and you're like, wow, it's so shiny and green. And then you cut it open and you're shocked that it's like pink and squishy, right? You can't compare the inside of your life to the outside of someone else's. Also, it's just pointless. And the other concept that came to mind for me was the idea that life gives us what we need. Life gives us what we need to grow. It doesn't always give us what we want. And I remember a couple years ago when my daughter was probably like 3, because I think my son was 1. So in that area, in that age of just like trying to get some sleep, trying to get some time for yourself, you're rearranging everything to meet the needs of everyone else. And I was thinking, I just need some quiet moments to myself because I just want to work on myself. I want to become a better person. I want to like pray and I want to meditate and I want to reflect on like how can I develop these spiritual qualities and how can I become a more patient mother? And so I had this idea that, well, fine, I'll just get up earlier. I'll get up first long before everyone else because the kids were getting up early at that stage. So I don't know if it was like 4:30 or 5 or something. And the first day I got up and I was so excited and I had a cup of tea and I started, reading my prayers and suddenly my daughter popped up. Hey, mom. And she came and she wanted to cuddle. And I was like, ugh. I just remember feeling so frustrated because I was like, this is supposed to be my time. And my daughter's like, yeah, I'll come have some of your alone time with you. And I was like, oof, not the point. But so I remember the first day being like, okay, maybe I just need to get up a little bit earlier. So the next day I woke up a little bit earlier. And kids just know, they just feel when you've left the left the bed or the room or the house or the universe. And I went upstairs and I started saying my prayers and she came up again and I was like, you need to go back to bed. Like mama's trying to work on herself. Like I'm trying to become more patient. And I was just so like frustrated. And she was like, but I want to stay with you. And so of course I was like, okay. And then so later that morning when my husband got up, he had the kids and I did get some time to exercise. I just started laughing because here I wanted time to work on being a more patient mother and a more patient person. And God was like, okay, here you go. Like, here, you're trying to do something you want to do, and something else is happening. And that's when you practice your patience. That's how you develop more patience. And it was funny because that's not the way I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it in this very comfortable nook where I was just conceptualizing and thinking about how I would do better. But the only way to get better is by doing. And so I literally was praying for opportunities to become a more patient mother. And God was like, okay, here you go. And I was like, no, 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 not that way. I'd like a different way, please. A different way for 500, please, Alex. And so it's all there. And you probably know it's happening when you're like, no, no, this is not what I want. This is not how I want to do it. So it's interesting how that personal growth, it actually requires us becoming more forgetful of ourselves. For example, I remember when both my kids stopped napping very early, like uncomfortably early, um, before they were 2. And people had told me that like their kids were napping till they were 5. So I felt like I was getting shafted and my personal time was being ripped away from me. And I went through this with both of them. With my son, I was slightly more aware of it, but I remember I would spend so much time trying to get my daughter to sleep. It would literally, I would spend like an hour trying to get her to sleep just for her to sleep for like 15 minutes. She just wanted to be with me. She needed to be in contact. We've all done it, right? You've like army crawled like out of the room and then you hit a creak in the floor and like, game over. You find you're pacing and you lay them down and your arms like stuck under them and you're like, is this the free time that I wanted? Or can I get it out? Or should I leave it there just to get a little bit of peace and quiet? And I remember the days that I was the most frustrated were days that I was fighting it. And I would try to get her to sleep. And then I was like, great, time for myself. And then she would wake up. And then I would be so frustrated that I didn't get that time for myself. And I started realizing she needs me right now. She needs me right now more than I need 30 minutes of Netflix or whatever it was that I thought I needed. And there's a quote from Abdu'l-Baha: when one is released from the prison of self, that is indeed true freedom, for the self is the greatest prison of all. And so in those moments when I would realize like myself, it was just, that's when I would get angry. I would get frustrated. When I was thinking of myself, I would have these negative emotions. And when I would let go of that, let go of self and put my child first, I would feel content. And it was almost just like submitting to the moment. I understand, especially in the world right now, we're like, me time. And I get it. Yes, we do want that time to decompress. However, I do think it's also a muscle that we can develop and possibly just a direction that the world is pulling us, saying that our self is important, our self is important, our self is important. And I think that, we do want to try to get sleep and blah, blah, blah. But also, I wasn't getting a lot of sleep in the early times of motherhood, and I'm okay. I'm okay. So, and this is where I get stuck because I'm like, okay, here's this like truth. And then I just want to make sure like I touch all the bases and everyone feels good. So I'll just leave it at that. Take it for what you will. The idea that our that self is a prison, I think that's something to think about. And that true freedom is when we are released from that. Interpret it how you want. So interesting to me that personal progress is about forgetting ourselves. It's personal, right? It's something that only we can do, and it is about ourselves. However, developing all these virtues requires interacting with others, right? I myself wanted to sit on a couch and like comfortably read a book about like how to improve myself, but the true growth is putting it into action. You can read about patience, but if you want to develop patience, you need to put yourself in situations where you can practice being patient, right? So if we're talking about truthfulness, there's going to be situations that test that. Are you going to be truthful in this situation? Are you going to be truthful when it gets hard? And then are constantly becoming more truthful with ourselves, because I think you can only be as honest and truthful as others as you are with yourself. And so I just find that interplay really interesting, that we need each other. We need each other to grow. We need to be tested by each other. We need to be stretched by each other. We need to struggle alongside of each other. We need each other for encouragement, right? The assignment isn't like go sit in the woods and for years and just meditate, because it's easy to be a good person when you're by yourself, right? Like you'd be like, pour yourself a cup of tea. Oh, please, more tea. Oh, yes, thank you. Oh, you're so kind. Oh, you're so kind. That's not the assignment, right? That's a type of growth for sure. Stuff is revealed through meditation, but we're around each other for a reason. We're around each other for our perfecting. And I started thinking about it and I'm like, we're all on the same team. So from the Baha'i perspective, we're all one. We're all one family. And if you think of it like that, so even when people are testing you and rubbing you the wrong way, if you can recognize they're here for my benefit. Thank you for being difficult. You're helping me either shed something I don't need or grow something that I do need or develop something that I do need. I remember right before I got married, I had asked a friend for advice, and she said, yeah, I think if you think of yourself as you're meant to be this beautiful statue, and we all start out as a block of wood, and each person is here to help us chip away the chunks that aren't part of that beautiful statue. So it requires maybe on the bigger chunks, like chopping and sanding and chipping away. And you're trying to get rid of all the stuff that isn't a part of that beautiful statue. And so that's what other people are in our life. They rub us the wrong way. But is it the wrong way? Or is it rubbing us and helping us refine something in our character? So if we can appreciate each other in that sense, and I was thinking about this idea that if we're all here for each other's benefit and helping each other grow, it's like being on the same team. And if you start viewing the other person as an opponent, which I think in the world at large we're kind of doing, like if you don't think the way I do, you're like kind of in my way. But if you recognize them as another soul, another noble being who's also learning and growing and developing and failing and falling, and nobody's at a place of completion. When you realize you're on the same team, if you start treating them as the opposition, it's literally like trying to block your own shot. As a basketball coach, I just had this mental image of like every time you go up to shoot a basket, you come in and like block your own shot, right? Or if you think of, humanity as like one human body, it'd be like cutting off your own foot or, neglecting a certain part of your body or not acknowledging that you have a foot, disowning it. There's a lot of different analogies, but anyway, that's different topic for another day. Hey, if you can't have me at my worst. All right, so back to kind of these tests. So there's like to simplify it, which I'm not the end all be all, just sharing some thoughts. Like there's different type of tests. So there's the divine tests that are here for the perfecting or refinement of our souls. And then there's the tests that we bring upon ourselves. So like if you lie and you cheat and you lose your job, that's not like the universe helping you grow. That's like you made a poor choice and you made things harder for yourself. So those things are like a little, I think if you really reflect, those type of tests are a little bit more obvious because it's like, oh, I did something wrong. I did something bad and things got harder. Like that makes sense. So there's those type. And then there's the type that, this other type that are here for our perfecting and for our refinement. And these type of tests, I feel like are often, you'll find it accompanied with like, why is this happening to me? Right? It's the moments in life that you feel like you're making good choices and you feel like you're working hard and you feel like you're feeding your soul regularly and praying daily and being of service to others and having good actions. And then a test comes along. And these are the ones that are for our refinement. And if you take a beat, you'll realize that it's the good stuff. Like if you can have patience and bear and endure and you get out to the other side, it's the good stuff where you're like, oh, wow, I overcame that. Or, oh, I thought this was a bad thing. And yet it led me in a direction I wouldn't have gone before, but it ended up being a better direction for me. And so these are the spiritual tests. And it's very layered, right? Because we're all kind of flopping through these tests at the same time. You don't know if someone else is going through a personal test that they've brought on themselves or if this is something there for their growth. And that's why it's like we have to have a patience and we have to have empathy and we have to have compassion and be encouraging. But I think if we look at each other through that lens with like less judgment and less criticism, we can be a little bit more kind when people are going through it because it's about them. They're growing. And we're testing people in ways as well. Like we're annoying sometimes or just you have to think of it if someone's not agreeing with you, you're also not agreeing with them. But yeah, these spiritual tests, these are the ones that when things are in alignment, they often come. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard, but I think it's also important to recognize like this concept that while everyone's going through these tests, it can hurt our feelings, it can hurt our bodies, but like their actions are connected to their soul. So you can't hurt my soul. You can't hinder my progress. I can by how I choose to treat you or what I choose to do to you, but your poor choices don't affect my soul. Again, they might hurt my feelings, they might hurt my body, but they cannot hinder the progress of my soul. And I know one example when my children get frustrated with each other, and like if one of them gets mad or gets hurt or and they sort of react and say something mean, I always tell them, just remember, I know you're saying that because you want to hurt them for what they did, but it's actually only hurting yourself. And that would be silly. Like, why would we want to punch ourselves in the face or punch our soul in the face, right? So, like the concept of revenge is the most ridiculous thing in the whole world. I think it's just like a big adult tantrum, and you're just reacting in really horrible, malicious ways, right? And it's really just self-destruction. If you're responsible for what you do and how you treat people, and that's connected to your soul, then those hurtful things you're doing, again, it's going to hurt some bodies, it's going to hurt some feelings and mess up some people's lives, but their soul is protected. Their soul is not damaged by someone else's poor choices or malicious intent. And that's why we have to lean into developing these spiritual qualities and these spiritual powers, because these are the tools that we need in our toolbox to maneuver life, right? So if someone is acting out in a malicious way, you're like, let me grab my wisdom and like not hang out with them more anymore. Or let me grab my patience and say, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt on this one and like remove myself, right? So it's like having tools in a toolbox that we're developing. So another thing I got stuck on is my desire for this to seem so polished and perfect. And it's like I see a lot of videos and podcasts that are like 5 easy steps to success and 3 this and 2 that, and just these real digestible bullet points that are supposed to just give us the ultimate, which I think that is a skill some people have, where it's like, here, I can take this lesson and give you like 3 bullet points, and that's a really helpful, useful system. But I realized that's what I was struggling with in an episode, to be like, okay, truthfulness, here's the 3 things that you need and that's it. It's done. Because with developing these spiritual qualities, well, yeah, there'll be the things that we can discuss in each episode, like defining it and how we can practice it, but also there's like infinite, that's a discussion that can be like infinitely wide and deep. And I realized I don't have 3 easy steps. I can only offer you a million hard steps that require effort and struggle and perseverance and victory and learning and growth and improvement and joy and all the things. And the only promise I can make is that it's worth it. And so, what I can do and what I'm here for is accompaniment and friendship and encouragement and motivation and inspiration. And that's where I got stuck, because I had this insecurity of like, oh, is this profound enough? Is like what I'm saying so mind blowing that you're going to want to tune in? But I realized that that's, again, this like urge to seek sensationalism and like entertain someone, catch their attention in 2 minutes. And that's not what I'm going to be able to do, because this is something that requires putting in the work and having an attention span like a little bit longer than a goldfish, and being open-minded, and people that are really committed to the process. And again, I'm sharing my journey. So again, as I say this really isn't advice for anyone else, but just a like intimate sharing of kind of what I've been going through as I'm creating something and trying to figure out what the heck I'm creating and why it's important. And I just had to remind myself that what I'm sharing is not instant gratification. Hopefully there's some stuff in each episode that's like brings some joy and it's a lot of fun. But on my end, that the development it's like overnight oats versus instant oatmeal. And again, that's more for me because I can sometimes be someone that does something while it's exciting, and then when it gets hard, I'm like, I'm not good at it. See you later. And especially with the development of our souls, that's something, I mean, you can quit, but you'll always have to come back around to it. And so in my journey of this, I'm kind of reminding myself that about this podcast, that like when it gets hard, that's the time for me to like keep walking and keep making efforts, because that's when there's growth. And it is not lost on me that I am literally doing this for myself and my own growth. And so the more I do it, the more that muscle will develop. And by muscle, when I think of all the qualities that it's required for me to um, put out a single episode, it's cool because, like I mentioned before, it's the action, it's the doing of something that gives you opportunities to develop these qualities. So the cool thing about personal development is you don't really even have to like seek out the perfect environment. Just existing in life will give you the opportunities. And then I think it's like having the knowledge and understanding in the moment of which qualities we need to use, or just being able to be like, well, that was pretty cool. I developed resilience, commitment, dedication. And I think that's one part that I struggle a little bit, where I'm like, I'm trying to look at one virtue at a time. And the thing is, they're so interconnected. And really, it's about looking at moments and seeing which virtues you developed there. When you look at a moment, what opportunities did that moment give you to develop XYZ? So, yeah, it was just, I don't know. I feel like I got a little bit stuck, and it was because I forgot my strengths. I forgot that I'm not an MVP and I'm not trying to be, that I'm trying to be most improved, right? Like I'm the person on the bench who's going to like fire people up and encourage them. I'm not going to be the MVP, and that's okay. And it was just, I needed to remind myself, I needed to get to my why. And it was interesting when I read about truthfulness, there was a portion of it that said truthfulness is knowing you are enough. Um, and then you don't need to exaggerate. And I forget what it is. I don't have the card here now, but, and I like had stopped on that and been like, this seems important. And then kind of kept talking. But it's when we know we're enough, we don't have to make stuff up, or we don't have to try to be someone else. And I think that's a continuous struggle for many, and certainly for me, where I feel like, oh, I'm not enough. So I'm going to look over and see what they're doing and try to be like them because, well, I think they're pretty cool. But yeah, I feel like truthfulness is understanding that you are enough, and share that with the world and trust that. And you don't have to be anything else. You really don't have to be anything else. Am I talking to you, or am I talking to myself? I don't know, maybe a little of both. But yeah, so it's just redirecting my compass and reminding myself that what my strengths are, and blasting down that path. And like I said, I know when I'm on the right path because I feel fired up, I feel passionate, I get energized. And when I'm not, like, it's so weird. My insides just shut down. They get really cold. My whole body's like, nope, we will not go in this direction, or not without a fight. Like, you can drag us kicking and screaming, but this is not right. So listen to your body. I don't know, if I'd love to hear from other people if that's the same. But usually we have certain cues that it's like, this don't feel right anymore. So I struggled to record a truthfulness episode because I realized that the content I was sharing wasn't truthful. It just wasn't authentic. It just felt flat because it wasn't coming from my heart. And I was trying to pitch from my brain, and it felt really robotic and forced. And what I always want to promise to bring is my heart. That's what I'm trying to share. So, I mean, I even tried to listen back, and it was so painful. There was one episode, I'm not even joking, I threw up in my mouth a little bit. It was probably because I ate like pizza and soda, and I was home alone, so I had a bunch of yummy snacks. And I think that was all coming up. But I started laughing because I was like, what is wrong with this day? I cannot record anything that I'm happy with. And I literally threw up in my mouth a little bit, which is also just feedback. So I just got stuck focusing on the wrong things. And it's interesting because, I mean, truthfulness is pretty simple, right? Like, don't lie, be honest, tell the truth, be full of truth. So I got stuck focusing on when I was thinking of truthfulness and I was talking about it, I was like focusing on, well, here's all the things in society that are need to practice truthfulness more. Like we're looking at the TV shows or the social media, and I was just going the wrong direction with the episode. It was because I believe that whatever you put energy into, that's what grows. So all my thought energy was going into all these systems and things that were lacking in truthfulness. And it felt wrong. And that's because what I realized I want to do is build new habits and reconstruct my consciousness to start focusing on substance and what's real and what's eternal. There's a quote from Baha'u'llah that says, "Holy words and pure and goodly deeds ascend unto the celestial heavens." I have to look up. But that essentially the idea that holy words, pure and goodly deeds are what stay with us. Like the good stuff goes, everything else fades away. I'm stopping because as I'm saying this, there's a notification that's your YouTube video hit 500 views, and that's what I'm trying not to focus on. Get out of my face. Lost my thought. Okay, so back to the point. It's like focusing on the light in the room versus when you turn out the light, you're not focusing on darkness. You're focusing on the lack of light or the absence of light or the emptiness. So when I was looking at truthfulness, I wasn't looking at truthfulness and I wasn't looking for examples of truthfulness and how we can get more of it. I was looking at the lack of. I was looking at everything, the politicians, all the things in life that are lacking. And when you study the lack of something, you will get more lack of something, right? So if I want to study these virtues, I need to be looking at the substance, looking at where the virtue exists and then seeking to grow more of it. It's like with my children, especially nowadays in parenting, they say praise the things you want to see more of. And so if my child's hitting, you do want to like, okay, let's stop the hitting, but give them the replacement behavior. Like, oh, I really love it when you use gentle hands. And then when you see them using gentle hands, oh, good job. I love seeing those gentle hands. And that's what they want to do more of. And that's what we should be doing with ourselves. So when we reflect at the end of each day, look for and let whatever virtue you're focusing on, because we're kind of talking about truthfulness, to be like, oh, where did I do a good job? Like I was really truthful there. And then by studying that, you can look at how you can become more. Of course, you might want to look at areas where you're like, was I truthful there? Well, I can actually become more truthful. But I realized in this show, somehow I'll weave it in where whether it's a segment or something, but it's like, yeah, it's almost like taking examples of where we see the good stuff and celebrating those moments in hopes of duplicating them and getting more of it. It's like, am I looking at the juice in the cup or am I looking at just the empty air around it? So even like when we look at others, look for their substance. Oftentimes we'll say, oh, that person's not patient. Well, they're maybe just like a little bit patient. Or, oh, that person is so selfish. It's like, well, maybe they're just such a little bit generous that, you can't see it. But we have to look for the substance, not the absence, because we don't know what our capacity for something is. Like we don't know if our cup is full or if we've just got a few drops in the bottom. But the idea is we want more of the substance. We want more of the quality, more of the virtue. And we need to train our brains to do this. One of my favorite quotes is, "Seek that which is worthy of praise." Let me look up the whole thing. "One must see in every human being only that which is worthy of praise. When this is done, one can be a friend to the whole human race. If, however, we look at people from the standpoint of their faults, then being a friend to them is a formidable task." So when I think of my why, really wanting to try to connect with people and to love all of humanity and strive to serve it, it's like some marching orders. Well, in order to do that, you have to look at what is worthy of praise. And I won't go too much into like practical examples because I know sometimes my brain always wants to find a way out. Well, like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Well, no, just yeah, it's a habit we have to form because it's so much easier to look at the bad things or the things that annoy us. For some reason, they stand out more. Actually, I know the reason. They stand out more because it gives us an opportunity to refine this process of building the habit to seek that which is worthy of praise. So that was a big realization for me that I need to reprogram my brain so that I'm offering substance in this podcast and not just jumping on the bandwagon of like, man, here's all the, you know, the stuff that's forcing us to lie, or look at these TV shows like, man, everyone's lying just to win the show. It's, we have to overlook all that and try to look for the examples in the world that we see it happening, and then start praising that and leaning into that. See each other, like call one of your friends up today and pay them a compliment. Or when you're on the playground with a couple parents and you see something good, speak to it, compliment them on it. It feels nice. It feels nice to get compliments. And then probably someone's going to try to do more of that. And it's important to do that with ourselves as well. Like, how often do we actually take time to reflect and say, wow, I really did good right there. Like, good job, me. Be a friend to yourself, be your own best friend. I mean, it is nice when others can say it, but we're somewhat programmed to seek where we're lacking or beat ourselves up, but we need to examine our lives and seek where we've done well and then try to replicate it, or look for the good in others as examples, and then we'll be encouraged to do better ourselves. So life is growing, which is gaining, or it's learning, which is also gaining. So where there's effort, there's no failure. Where there's effort, there is only progress. Where there's effort, there is no failure. There is only progress. So, however small it may seem at times, we might feel like I just gave it a little bit of effort. That's still progress. Like a bird that's flapping its wings, as long as it's flapping, it's flying. It might even like coast for a little bit. But if it coasts for too long, it starts fading, it starts dropping from the sky. So, we just got to keep flapping. Failure isn't failure. It's not even a thing, it's just feedback. That was one thing I learned through comedy. Failure is just feedback. Like, if people don't laugh, you're not going to die. Certainly, it's not the end of the world. And the audience is just saying like, hey, that wasn't super funny. Like, go rework it, try again. So failure is just feedback. It doesn't exist. Again, we're looking at the substance. So to me, it's like failure is only the term that we use when we've set expectations and those expectations weren't met. Then we go, oh, we failed. Right. But if we were to focus on praising our effort and then we see where our efforts lead us, sure, you can set goals, but also be open that what if you exceeded your goal? Right? Or what if success looked a little bit differently? Um, and so I think it's just making that consistent effort and then see where these efforts lead you and praise that. And that way there's not this expectation and then you feel you failed. Instead, you're praising the achievement and the efforts along the way. And the success or the learning, that might mean repeating the same thing, right? Most people, what they call failure is because, oh, I got to do it again. If you failed a grade, I got to repeat the grade. It's just you're going to have to do it again and again until you strengthen this skill. So it's not failure, it's just, right, I just need to like practice a little bit more to develop this skill. Abdu'l-Baha says the same test comes again and again in greater degree until it is shown that a former weakness has become a strength and the power to overcome has been established. So in that sense, if you want to use failure, you're supposed to fail. Like, God doesn't even expect us to be perfect. And yet here we are expecting ourselves to be perfect. Oh, we didn't get right first time. Failure. Well, no, it just means that it's still a weakness. It's not a strength of ours yet. So the same test will come again and again. And to me, it's real encouraging. You should be very encouraged when you've had a test and you're like, oh my gosh, here it is again. And now it's harder. Oh my gosh, here it is again. And now it's even harder. Get excited because that means you're getting stronger. You're getting closer to conquering that weakness. And it's about to like become a strength. So again, this requires a lot of self-awareness, But if you can remember, okay, all right, test, I see you again and again and again, don't be discouraged. In fact, get excited and encouraged, because that means that you are making some real progress and you are advancing. And that's some good stuff right there. So be brave and be bold in your growth, because everything good goes with us and the rest is just learnings, and it's like dropping to the wayside. So it's either good or it's the absence of, if you want to think of it like that. So don't get stuck staring at the emptiness or a lack thereof of a certain virtue or a lack of substance. Really try to focus on what's there, what exists, not the lack thereof, if that makes sense. And then it helps to bring yourself to account each day. At the end of each day, really look at what you did good. I think that's something that is really worth focusing on. Most of us, it's like you lay down and you think about the day and it's like, oh gosh, ugh, that was tough. That was hard. Those are important, but look at what you did well. Thank God for helping you do those things well, because you didn't do it by yourself. Believe it or not. And then the stuff you need help with, just ask God for a little bit of help, or that energy, or that universe, or whether you think it's self-reflection. God is within us. So, and there's an out of us and light shining through us. And so whatever that energy is that you connect with, tap into that. So if you made it this far, there's my truth for today. This episode was on truthfulness, and it's the most truthful episode that I could give you. Again, a lot of my former recordings really focus so much more on what truthfulness is and how we can practice it. But I think for me, it was just practicing it in this episode and getting real with myself. The quote that inspired this whole episode is from Abdu'l-Baha. Truthfulness is the foundation of all human virtues. Without truthfulness, progress and success in all the worlds of God is impossible for any soul. When this holy attribute is established in man, all the divine qualities will also be acquired. So there you go. If you made it this far, truthfulness is the foundation. The foundation is always the most important, strongest part of anything. And it requires a lot of our attention and a lot of our effort. But when we have a strong foundation, that's when we can build solid on top of it. So if you think of truthfulness as the foundation, every other virtue, brick by brick, gets layered on top of that. And that's the direction when we want to head. Your foundation does require attention, fixing cracks, building it bigger. Sometimes you want to expand. You want to make an addition, so you need to expand your foundation. So of course, this is something that throughout our life we're constantly visiting and revisiting. But I do love that visual of truthfulness being that solid foundation in our life, and then the rest of the virtues will continue to strengthen on top of that. And without it, you can't have progress or success. I hate to break it to you. So people in the world who are operating untruthfully, they might think they have progress and success, but it's not. It's fleeting. It will go away. It's not the type of success that sticks with them forever. So you want your foundation to be strong, ultimately. And I hope something here has touched your heart or stirred your soul in some way, and that you feel inspired and encouraged to get your growth on, because that's what I'm here for. And I grew a ton in just trying to record this next episode, and it helped recenter me and redirect me, and I'm excited again. I'm inspired to carry on and keep growing. So I'd love to hear from you. Again, I have an email for this show, themostimprovedshow@gmail.com. I would love to hear your reflections, or if there's like a shout out you want to give to someone for a virtue they exhibit pretty well. But anyway, I'd love to hear from you. This is certainly a work in progress, and I appreciate you being on this journey with me. My name is Carly, and this is Most Improved.